Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all. Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books. And today I'm going to be talking about a YA science fiction book. The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This was actually, if not the first, one of the first books that I ever got in an Owlcrate book box. So the main difference between this edition and like the regular edition of the book is that the cover has a slightly different design, and then also on the inner hard case there is a lovely foil stamp there. Ooh, so pretty. Other than that, Owlcrate has very much changed the way they do their special editions since 2 years ago when I got this book. So it's pretty simple as far as like the changes go. But anyway, let's jump in and talk about this book. I will give you my 1 minute, kind of setup here, and then I'll talk about what I like, what I don't like. So this book features two sisters. So every other chapter is told from a different sister's point of view. One sister, her name is C. She has woken up on this island. She has no idea how she got here. There's no one else on the island but her. She's trying to survive on her own. And also she's trying to get back to her family, to her sister. And that is like her number one goal, is just survive and get back to her sister. And all of her chapters are about that, basically. Now, on the flip side of that, we have the other sister. And the other sister is Casey. She's the sister left behind. Now, Casey is a genius. She's living in this eco-city. In this world, all of Earth now lives in these like domed eco-cities where the rich people are up on the top levels of the eco-city, the poor are on the bottom. And Casey is one of those people who is very, very smart when it comes to like science and physics and math, but she's not as smart when it comes to emotions. And since she lost her sister, since C disappeared, she has had a hard time making relationships, having friends, all of those kind of things. So to Casey, C disappeared mysteriously a few years back, and she doesn't know what happened to her sister, so she's trying to find out like what really happened to C. So again, we have C over here, mysterious island, trying to get back to Casey over here, Casey trying to figure out what really happened to C, and maybe she's still alive out there somewhere. So again, that's my very simple setup. So now I'm going to tell you what I liked about this book. I liked the kind of competing storylines in this book. I liked that every other chapter we got a different perspective from the two different sisters. And one thing I found really entertaining about C's chapters is her chapters are numbered with like these slashes, because that's supposed to represent like how long she's been on the island and how many times she's tried to leave the island, so to speak. So I think the whole setup of this book is pretty cool. Not only is it a science fiction because it's taking place in this sci-fi setting, but there's also this like mystery, right? How did C end up on this island? Like, is she ever gonna make it back to Casey? Is Casey gonna figure out what really happened? Like, there's a big mystery kind of at the heart of the story, and that's the thing that kind of kept me engaged throughout the story. Then at about the halfway point, there is a major twist in this story. There is a major twist. And it's interesting that it happens at around the halfway mark. It might be a little bit past that. But it's interesting that it happens at that point because there is so much more story that follows after the twist that was an interesting choice. So that's another thing I like about this book. This book not only has like one big twist, it has many twists. Because even though there's kind of this big one, even after that, there are still like these things that start to be revealed and you're like, oh my gosh, like what is going on here? So there's a lot of twists and turns, which I found really fun. I found the mystery aspect really, really fun. And then the one other thing I would say that I liked, and this is very common in science fiction, where they pose a lot of questions about like what's the right thing to do. And without giving away spoilers, in Casey's chapters, even though Casey is living in this eco city, the rest of the planet really is kind of starting to deteriorate. And while Casey is focused on finding her sister, like the scientific part of her brain can't stop thinking about what can she do to like save the planet and save the people there. And the things that she comes up with, the ideas that she has, aren't exactly accepted by the rest of the scientific community. I can't tell you what they are, but let's just say it definitely brings a lot of morality in question. Like, hey, it's like that whole question of saving one person versus saving a billion, and is it worth saving 100 over here if these people all die? Like, it's one of those type of paradox, ethical type questions. And again, I think exploring those things are definitely really fascinating and really interesting. So now I'm going to talk about the things that I don't like about this book. And I would say the main thing is I feel like at some point, especially as it gets closer to the end, I feel like some of the story gets a little convoluted. So I feel like the twists that happen at some point, it feels like there's too many twists. And I kind of lost track of like what exactly was going on. I lost track of what exactly was going on because at some points it switches back and forth between the chapters like every other page. So there's not even enough of a chapter to like really digest what is happening to one of the sisters before it immediately switches back to the other sister. And again, once you find out what's really going on, it's really jarring to switch back and forth like that so quickly and so often. So I do think it became a little bit convoluted. And there was a point where I did kind of just have to shut my brain off and just kind of go with it and stop trying to figure it out. Specifically, I would say when it comes to Casey's chapters in particular, I just felt like the author was trying to like go into detailed explanations of like science and physics and stuff, and I am not a science person, so for me all that stuff just kind of went over my head and I was like, okay, let's just like get back to the story here. The other thing that not that I didn't like, but I was kind of meh about is the ending. I do think that the ending of this book is a little meh. Again, because the twists are so shocking throughout, because there's so many, there's like this very high-paced, like, crescendo towards the end of the book, and then I feel like it just kind of ends on like a, meh, okay, that's okay. Like, that's an okay way to end it. I was expecting something a little bit more epic or a little bit more meaningful or mind-blowing or something like that. And hey, maybe someone else will feel differently. But for me, I thought the ending was kind of just, it was okay. Like, it wasn't terrible, but I think it could have been better as well. So just to wrap this review up, the things I liked about this book are the structure of the story. Again, for the most part, I do like the twists for the most part, and I do like some of the science fiction-y, morality, ethical questions that it poses. However, the things that I didn't like are, I do think the twist became way too convoluted towards the end. The story got a little bit confusing, and then the ending was just kind of meh. So overall, I did enjoy this one. It's not the best thing I've ever read, but I still generally had a good time with it. So if you are someone that is into YA science fiction, you might want to give this one a try. You might have a lot of fun with it. However, if you're not into YA science fiction, then I don't think that this book would change your mind, and it's probably a good idea to skip it. that is all for me today and Lola. So now we want to know from you, have you read The Ones We're Meant to Find? Have you ever read a YA science fiction? If you have, let us know in the comments section below. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff and more furry friends coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.